Now, the basic meaning of encapsulation really is to hide the inner workings of the class. We want to limit the visibility to the data members or other elements of the class that are really used internally. Then what we'll do is we'll create public members that expose just the desired functionality that we want the users of the class to see. Now, this prevents users from being able to get in there and actually start manipulating objects and managing and manipulating the data that's maintained inside the class without going through your various rules. You may have application process rules or business rules that you're trying to enforce through this class. And by encapsulating the content of the class, the only way to get access to this data or to make modifications to that data is by going through your public methods. Now, there's basically two different ways you can encapsulate data. You can either use accessor mutator methods, or you can also use properties. Now, if you choose to use accessor mutator methods, basically what we're doing here is we're creating private data members, and then we will create two methods for each of those data elements. One of those methods, called an accessor, will usually start with the word get. So if I had a private data member called name, for example, I can have a method called getName. And getName is the accessor that's used to read the private data value. Then I would create a mutator method. The mutator method is the method we use to make modifications to that private value. The mutator usually begins with the word set, and then we'll use the name of the element we're trying to modify. So once again, if the private data member is called name, I could have a method called setName. So getName and setName basically represent my accessor mutator pair. Now, to control access to the data members at this point, all you have to do is control access to the accessor mutator methods. You can make these public, private, internal. It's entirely up to you, depending on what type of access is actually needed. You can also, by the way, set the initial values of these private encapsulated data members through the constructors. That way, you can set up some of the initial values when the class is instantiated, and then still use your accessor mutator methods to make changes to those values or to retrieve those values. Now, another approach for encapsulating data in a class is to use a property. With properties, we take a similar sort of approach. We're going to create private data members that are encapsulated within the class, and then we create a public method that has a name for a property that you wish to expose. Again, I use the concept of public here, but it wouldn't have to be public. You would want to restrict this, obviously, at whatever level of accessibility makes sense for the property you're trying to expose. Now, within this public method, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to create two separate blocks within the method, one called get and one called set. So conceptually, the get block contains the code that will run when you read a value from the property, while the set block contains the code that will run when you write a value to the property. The interface is a little bit different, however, because we use the equal sign, that assignment operator, to assign a value to the property or to pull a value out of a property for assignment into something else. So it looks very similar to properties you may have worked with in other languages, like Visual Basic, for example. The implementation is different, but the concept in terms of how you actually interact with those properties is very similar.